Oh my goodness, family. As if today's video weren't enough, we have you maniacs Netflix a shower of criticism. Obviously, they had to show up after what they did for getting none other than Checo and Colapinto. We won't forgive that. But if that weren't enough, family, we have another bombshell today. You've probably heard it already, and I bring you a full analysis. Why? Because an Australian outlet slammed Franco Colapinto. The factor that makes them see him as a threat to Jack Doohan. They're afraid, family. Infobay, under the headline The Towering Shadow, claims in Australia that Doohan is in danger as a starting driver. Ole, ciao Doohan. Doohan is basically getting thrown out. These aren't just keyboard warriors. These are Australian media outlets. Welcome to Sport Maniatico, the Formula One section on YouTube. Stay, enjoy, and smash a massive like for everything that's happening, for everything Franco Colapinto is stirring up, so this reaches as many people as possible. It seems a lot of people don't like it, right? Because it looks like, on the other hand, they don't want to give visibility to Colapinto or to Checo. Maybe someday they'll ask us or they'll respond to us about why those at USA Flix aren't doing it, because until they change my mind, to me it's not Netflix, it's USA Flix. Given how they give Sargent the same prominence as Colapinto, this is a scandal. Anyway, speaking of scandals, the Australian press had one saved up. I took the trouble to look at the information, summarize it, and translate it so we can all understand exactly what was said. Keep in mind it's an article from the Sydney Morning Herald. If you want to check it out and pay them money, you have that option. You see it on screen. The headline is 91,000 Australians for, or something about the reason an Australian Formula 2 driver might be left without a job. Right there, they're giving you some content that begins like this. Imagine slowly working your way to your dream job. These are our friends at TN and also Infobay. Notice they ran it under the towering shadow. Ole, ciao, Doohan. And people want to see exactly what this article said from top to bottom. Notice that it popped up everywhere. In Australia, they say Colapinto will take Doohan's place. Get ready for failure. Before getting into it, since I took the trouble to translate the entire piece so it's clear what they're talking about, before anything else, I've gone a few days without giving thanks, as always. So thank you to all sport maniaticos. Keep in mind that you have some private videos with information from sources I'd rather not make go viral given how things are with haters and everything else. These are things that won't be confirmed right now, for example, regarding Checo Perez, and we've also reviewed all that, which is for you. Thanks for being there, even if it costs less than a cup of coffee, because people have told me Alberto raised the price. It doesn't matter. I just want to know how many of you are satisfied. If you're not in Argentina, you're Sport Maniatico non-Argentina. If you're in Argentina, you're Sport Maniaticos Argentina. You'll see a different price, which is why there are two, about $1 or so, as if Nicolas Georgi, Kevin Panarotti, Luis C., Marcelo Alberto Landivar, Gustavo Margaría, Andrea Suárez, Brian Estrada, Ariel Baliña, Félix el Gato del Gaming, Facundo Elizalde, Marco Antonio Rosas, Óscar Martín Maseto, María Silvia Rodríguez Córdoba, Príncipe Mestizo, Iñi Durá, Marco Campanoda, Mateo, Luis Tabela, Steven Z Gamer, Walter, and Monarez here in Argentina, plus those outside Argentina as well. Note that some people think there are too many from Argentina. Like I always say, I'm still showing the graph, I just haven't shown it yet. But Argentina, I have to say, is catching up with the non-Argentines in terms of membership, though there's more to come. Thanks to all of you, I'm planning to do some live streams for when I release summaries, because many of you have said you want to see them live. Well, I won't ramble on. Just so you know, Sport Maniaticos non-Argentina and Argentina is available, and you have all kinds of content, and we'll do more and more because you're the ones who drive Sport Maniaticos to where we are, even if it's simply to say, Alberto, you're doing a good job. Because tell me what you can do with $1, right? So an Australian outlet slammed Franco Colapinto, the factor that makes them see him as a threat. I told you, I took the trouble to see it, understand it, and translate it, and this is the post. It's like this, okay? If you want to see it and pay for it, just go to the page I mentioned. It's in English. It's forbidden to read otherwise. Well, it's a premium service. And it basically says something like this. 91,000 for the race, the reason why an Australian Formula One driver could be left jobless. And it starts off with the article by Matthias Clayton. Roughly setting the scene, it says something like, imagine moving slowly toward your dream job and finally getting the nod, only to have your employer immediately hire someone else equally qualified and significantly more financially appealing and set you up to fail. It says, harsh indeed, but that's the reality for Jack Doohan, whose debut at the Australian Grand Prix next weekend will come with the ticking of a clock as its soundtrack, a debut at Albert Park, under the towering shadow of Alpine's new diminutive reserve driver, Franco Colapinto. Right? I'm telling you, the towering shadow of the diminutive new reserve driver. It mentions that Doohan's seat is under threat in his Formula One career, and after Alpine spent 3 years carefully planning his path to Formula One, it seems brutal. Notice how from Australia they're attacking. That's hate, okay? That's hatred coming from where it needs to come. Right, Oliver Oakes? Keyboard warriors, they call them. These aren't keyboard warriors. Look at what they're saying. They're saying Jack Doohan is under threat in a single race of his Formula One career. And after Alpine spent 3 years carefully planning his path to Formula One, it seems brutal. Bam! A big slap in the face, like a freshly caught fish across Oliver Oakes' face. Let him enjoy it, right? Because these people are also keyboard warriors, buddy. It says that for a team with Alpine's constant commitment to chaos in recent years, so basically, up till now, Alpine was super great, and suddenly you're out if you don't interest them with Doohan, so you get smacked in the face with a freshly caught fish, nice and fresh, for Oliver Oakes. Let's see if now he'll give the same response he gave to that 1% of Argentines, or rather Colapinto fans. Let's see if he'll also call them keyboard warriors. But since this is a bigger media outlet, I don't know if he's got the guts to do it. We'll see in the coming hours. So far, he said nothing. It says all Doohan can do is take advantage of his situation and become too indispensable to be sidelined while Colapinto hovers over him. I don't know if you've seen Abu Dhabi or if you've also seen the test telemetry, but I think you're all a bit clueless, right? It also says that paddock speculation suggests Doohan might have only a 6-race contract, and then it talks about how he has to seize the opportunity he's got. It says he was dropped by parachute into a race seat with only 1 week's notice for last season's final Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And what about Colapinto, since they're comparing him to Colapinto? Didn't the same thing happen to him, going from the Netherlands to Italy? But that doesn't show up on Netflix. Doohan's situation does. It says that in last year's season finale in Abu Dhabi, the French team benched its usual driver, Esteban Ocon, who had signed with rival team Haas for 2025 to get an early look at the 22-year-old, who didn't race anywhere last year after taking 3rd place in the 2023 Formula 2 Championship. Let me read that again. Who didn't race anywhere last year after taking 3rd place in the 2023 Formula 2 World Championship. What's next? Champion of a marbles tournament? I'm freaking out. It says Doohan stayed out of trouble and finished 15th in Abu Dhabi. This is laughable. 15th in Abu Dhabi with a car capable of a podium finish, and they say he stayed out of trouble. Well, of course, if you don't push, obviously you're not even going to break a sweat. And your suit stays clean. Are you kidding me? It says that getting your feet wet in Formula One in relative anonymity was apparently a sensible strategy. Yes, staying at the back of the grid with a car that could be on the podium seems like a perfect strategy in the eyes of Briatore. Then they say some more things. They mention how everything seemed fine, and along comes January and Colapinto'S signing, as though it changes everything. If you want, check out the Sport Maniatico video on Abu Dhabi telemetry. Because I'm telling you, a backward-moving Disney crab could have made it to the finish line faster. Then it says, in January, Colapinto was signed as a reserve driver after the Argentine competed in 9 Grands Prix for Williams last year when the British team fired Logan Sargent. Here, they don't talk about how Colapinto did it or how they didn't put him in the car without any experience or how some had 300,000 kilometers and he had 30. No, none of that. That's left out. Oliver, I'm waiting to hear you call them keyboard warriors, but I don't know if you've got the guts to do it. We'll see, because I'm really curious after you got slapped in the face with a huge fish and got knocked out. When you come to, we'll see if you can still call them keyboard warriors, because they've smacked you good. Not even 1% of Argentines smacked you that hard. It says Colapinto, the first pilot from his country in a generation, made an impression with pace he only showed intermittently in the feeder series leading to Formula One. How is that intermittently? He always had the pace. Another matter is if he had accidents. Meanwhile, Doohan never showed pace at all. Let's be clear. You're being deceived. Accidents. Good grief. Nobody mentions, for example, how many kilometers Antonelli had compared to what Colapinto had, or that in the same race, he ended up a tenth of a second behind Alex Albon, who after 4 races at low speeds was asking Colapinto for help with setups. But if you read this, you ask yourself, is this even the same Colapinto? Of course not, Alberto. Listen, maybe it's his twin brother who's also in Formula One, like the Schumachers. One was good, the other not so much. I don't know. Maybe that's what's happening. Where is he? Franco Colapinto. And, I don't know, Alberto Colapinto. Could be his twin brother? We have no idea, but Netflix will probably introduce him in Season 8. Most likely there's a twin brother who's the bad one because the one we've seen is good, but they say he's bad. So, I say, well, Netflix is basically a movie, plus that synergy with Formula One. They must be like the Schumachers, 2 brothers, and they haven't told us yet. They look so much alike that camera work makes you not notice. But in Netflix Season 8, I'm telling you, that's gotta come out for me to understand how they can talk so badly about Colapinto, with how little he's been able to do. The nerve it takes to ignore motorsport news saying Albon copied his setups. That's either not seeing it or not wanting to see it because there's no one blinder than the one who doesn't want to see. Anyway, they say it didn't take long. There are some nice lines in there. I'm not reading it all because I can't. It's behind a paywall. Read it if you want. Pay them. It says it didn't take long for the jungle drums to become deafening. Colapinto's popularity in a country short on Formula One drivers generated significant commercial interest last year. People with inside info in the paddock suggested that Colapinto's commercial backers were kicking in $500,000 per race during his brief stint with Williams. The Italian publication La Gazzetta dello Sport, which has good connections, reported that Williams received 20 million euros from Alpine for that multi-year deal. The group of Argentine sponsors at Alpine grew, right? And hey, they're not going to Ferrari or Hamilton's side. Listen, if Doohan doesn't sell or even chew gum in Australia for the Kangaroos, that's not our fault. Quit acting so offended. Quit attacking people who actually have supporters. Quit attacking people that companies want to promote just because of envy, because nobody wants your driver. They don't want him. I'm sorry, I'm not insulting him. I'm just telling the absolute truth. Before all this fuss about hate, we Sport Maniaticos had to go give likes to a comment on Instagram. This is madness. Then people said we hated Doohan, and this is the level of that newspaper. It says the group of Argentine sponsors at Alpine grew. While Formula One teams don't hire drivers solely for the financial benefits they bring, since lap times remain the main factor, of course it can't hurt, right? Basically, they're saying that's not the only thing that puts drivers in Formula One. My question is if you're saying that about Colapinto, that he earned it and not too soon. Because if it were purely about sponsors, they would have moved him up to Formula One sooner, and it took a while. So maybe the one who got a boost is Doohan, whose father is who he is. For example, that's something you don't mention in the article, right? Oh, friend, mamma mia. They say the Mexican sponsor stickers visibly present on the side of the Red Bull car since Sergio Perez teamed up with Verstappen disappeared after the 35-year-old driver was replaced by Lawson. We've already said so, including about Bybit. Well, it all went away. Then it says Perez's drop in results last year caused Red Bull to drop to third in the Constructors' Championship despite Max winning his fourth title. And my response is, let's see if they do better this year with Colapinto'S arrival at Alpine. The team leadership had several chances to clarify Doohan's future, but they dodged the subject. No, they didn't dodge it. Oliver Oakes came out, who we won't forget, to say it wasn't in their plans to give Doohan a clause. That was great until he backtracks 2 days later because of keyboard warriors like you, the writer. But this is a media outlet bigger, so the executive advisor at Alpine, the veteran Formula One team boss, Briatore, only fanned the flames when asked for certainty about the lineup. So they're even going after Briatore, family, going after the one in charge. And they go after him, saying you can't be emotional in Formula One. They highlight all the words Briatore said, then highlight Oliver Oakes' statements in defense, just to show what we were saying, and we were the first media to say it. There's a good guy and bad guy. The bad guy is Oliver Oakes. The good guy is Briatore. Obviously, one has interests in Alpine, the other in Colapinto, and they're unmasking each other. This is Oliver Oakes' newspaper, so to speak. Remember how Helmut Marko had outlets? Same idea. Between Briatore's implied threat and Oakes' non-answer, there was the F1 launch event at the O2 Arena, etc. Right, so they asked him again about Colapinto'S arrival. Then Doohan said, they told me he's a reserve driver. They explained that a bit. A follow-up question asked if he felt undermined by Colapinto'S presence as a reserve driver. He said, that's a question? We already saw the uproar. Oliver Oakes defended him, and the piece says there will be many more questions on that single topic leading up to what should be a historic moment for Doohan this weekend, a moment whose narrative should be about a second-generation racing prodigy climbing to the top of his chosen motorsport. But let me ask you, go ask any Australian which they prefer. Doohan having a good weekend or Piastri fighting for the championship? Come on, man. Doohan isn't liked in Australia right now, no matter where he comes from. They obviously prefer Piastri. After a first F3 season with no points in 2020, Doohan finished second in the championship in his second season, then moved on to F2. Sixth in F2 in 2022 led to a 2023 campaign with 3 victories and 5 podiums, earning him third overall in that category, the final step before F1. Well, watch the Sport Maniaticos recaps of F2 and F3. Doohan finished third, but he had the machinery. You could say he destroyed his own championship. My personal take is that Doohan comes across as a hard-working, battling driver who'll raise the floor, but maybe not the ceiling. That's a description we apply to a lot of his colleagues, many of whom got to Formula One with less success. He projects as a hard-working battler who'll raise the floor, but maybe not the ceiling. Even so, that level of achievement isn't likely to cut it this time. Certainly not at a team that let its former reserve driver, Oscar Piastri, another Aussie, slip away through a contract loophole to McLaren, and that has changed team principles the way winning teams change gearboxes, etc. Bam! Another fresh fish to Oliver Oakes' face. Since Alpine will probably be fighting with Williams for the title of fastest team behind the Big Four. And so far, that checks out as we analyzed in the telemetry that Williams is better, Doohan has to perform, and quickly. They're basically telling Doohan that even if he does, the dreaded firing from an employer that's turned its back on him might be as inevitable as it is unfair, even by Formula One standards. So, notice how they're being his lawyer, saying Alpine turned its back on him. If you look at everything the article says, summarized roughly, I didn't quote everything, but I covered the main points. You see, they're scared, they're terrified, family. It's fear that Colapinto might blow them away. They're keyboard warriors who whacked Oliver Oakes with a fresh fish. Let's hope Oliver Oakes can, have the guts to say to them the same thing he told us when he called us keyboard warriors. Because wow, they sure did a number on him, saying that they've completely sidelined Doohan. You all heard it. I think calling it sidelining is a lie because Oliver Oakes said it wasn't his intention for Doohan to get just a few trial races. Something we know is very likely to happen, right? Now you sport maniaticos are better informed. You know more. Family, have a great day. Let it be known, the enemy is scared. Yes, respectfully, but they are the enemy. Australia sees Argentina coming out on top. Oliver, I'm still waiting, and I'm not talking about the Oliver and Benji series.